Again, I want to welcome Dr. Tom Eickhoff to this session of Coffee with Cleo. And some people may say that this is Ag Chat. We are talking about the agricultural segment, but everyone's impacted by agriculture. And I want to transition, Tom, and get your perspective on some of the things that you shared earlier about access. Access to resources, access to information, access to data is important. But let's talk about broadband. When we talk about being able to access the internet, over 33 million people in the United States are struggling that either they do not have access to broadband or have very much spotty access to broadband. And that is not just an agricultural problem, but it's also a urban problem as well. About a quarter of the folks that live in urban America also do not have access to broadband. So I would like to get your perspective on that, especially when I feel that broadband should be looked at as a utility, no different than electricity, and be provided for everyone, even subsidized. It's subsidized in the Farm Bill. Why wouldn't we have an opportunity to subsidize that for all Americans, especially in getting information with COVID, with our education system, et cetera? So a long question, but I think you get the gist of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think Cleo, it could be a potentially huge gap for agriculture as we think about broadband and connectivity. You know, no different than you and I have the luxury of getting on my phone and ordering dinner, ordering things off of Amazon, whatever I need. I can access that, and I interact with business to business or providers all the time digitally. You know, many of our farmers in the US, even we're pretty advanced, don't
Yes.
have that same luxury.
Yes.
And I saw a study. I know the United Soybean Board recently did a study that showed they felt like about 87% of folks in the US felt like they had connectivity. But on the flip side, 60% of farmers felt like they did not have the level of connectivity, broadband access they needed to run their business. And that's a huge gap to be able to, if think about the bridge we're trying to build on transparency,
Yes.
food to table, being able to provide access to markets to everyone, be able to track and really quantify sustainable metrics that growers and farmers can use to show how sustainable agriculture can be. All of that is going to be rooted, in my opinion, in the future on being able to have broadband access and to have strong connectivity from the farm to everyone else. So I couldn't agree more. It's something that I know our company has done a lot to advocate for, promote some of the gaps, and really help lead on why broadband access across the United States and really globally is so critical for agriculture going forward.
I agree with you 100%. Tom, there's a couple more questions I want to ask you and to tap into some of your perspective and expertise. I would like to know, how has the industry, the agriculture industry that you're working in, and I spent over 30 plus years in the agriculture industry, and it changed and it's still changing, but how has the industry changed from your perspective since you started in regards to diversity and inclusion? And what do you feel has driven those changes? And what do you see moving towards the future, especially with people from urban America looking for roles and opportunities in the big world of agriculture?
Yeah, there's so much there, Cleo. One, I've seen tremendous diversity enter into the agriculture sector. I still think we have a ways to go to improve, but you know, we've made tremendous progress. So you asked the question of, well, what drives that? And I'm a believer that one of the big areas is, you know, just around the whole concept of STEM, science, technology, you know, engineering. All of these fields are tying so closely to agriculture these days. And, you know, whether you're talking about innovative plant breeding or these digital tools like Climate Field View to be able to interact with the customer, it requires a very different skill set than what agriculture may have used, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I think a lot of that change in ag has driven the need for more diversity and new thoughts within the agriculture space. The other part of that is just the global connectivity and sharing and starting to learn how a connected society changes the mindset of an industry space. And we're just seeing that over and over again, that as you share information, you're bringing in diverse thought, you're bringing in diverse perspectives. And it's a huge change for agriculture, and something that's really exciting to be on the front side and see.
Yes, there's a lot of research that shows, and you can't question the numbers. Companies that embrace diversity and inclusion outperform based on return on investment, revenue projections, culture from a customer satisfaction index. There's a lot of metrics that showcase that, and it's good to hear your perspective with that particular topic. Tom, two more questions for you. And again, we're talking to Dr. Tom Eickhoff, of course, the Senior Director at Climate Corporation. Of course, it is a subsidiary of the Monsanto Bear Group. Tom, I have to ask you this. I've written a book, Coffee with Cleo. It is a very honest approach to leadership. I don't hold back. I show a lot of vulnerability and humility. And I have to ask you this question underneath that, guys. Tom, what is one lesson in your career that you are glad that you've learned early? And what is a lesson that you can share with the audience that you wish you would have learned?
Oh yeah, that's a great question, Cleo. I like that. One lesson that I learned very early in graduate school was I remember very quickly that I was not fond of public speaking whatsoever. I tended to create slides that had many words on them, lots of information, and you read from the slide. And one thing that my advisor really instilled with me was, hey, to be really effective in your career, number one, you have to be a great communicator. And two, there's ways you can do that through storytelling that really help make your message be heard. And that really stuck with me as a scientist, because I don't think as scientists we're always trained really well on how do you communicate the results of science to a broad or diverse audience. And that lesson of using pictures, building your story around what the numbers, the data is saying, so that people can connect with you, understand, and are willing to accept the message, is something that has stuck with me my entire career, and one I'm really grateful that my advisor spent time mentoring me on. On the flip side, if there was something I'd look back and say I wish I did sooner or did more of, I always think there's more risk I could have taken. Especially early in career, I tended to shy away from things that I was maybe uncertain, or fear of failure may have entered your thought of, I really don't want to do this and not do it well. And as I've gone through my career, I see how rewarding that can be when you really stretch yourself, you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you learn so much. So if there's one thing I would maybe do more of, it'd be jump into those areas where you're a little uncertain. And I would have done that earlier in my career for sure.
Tom, I spoke at a youth conference last week, a virtual youth conference, and two pieces of advice I share with them is to be fearless without question, but to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And anytime that you stretch yourself and learn something new, especially when it makes you uncomfortable, I think you're able to master your fear and gain some new experiences. Tom, last question for you. As a global leader, and I want you to think about those people in rural America and urban America or across the world, what are some of the experiences and skills that you rely on that really have helped mold and shape your leadership methodology and your leadership approach? And what are some of the things that you can share for those folks that are aspiring to be in the position that you're in today? Please share that with us.
Yeah, no, a couple things I'd share. One, I think the lessons on communication are critically important. And I believe, one, to be a good communicator, you have to be able to tell stories, but number two, you have to listen. And being someone who listens brings that inclusiveness, the empathy of, I really want to know how I can help you. I've found that that's something that's necessary, especially as you operate globally, to build a strong, trusting relationship, be able to build a collaborative relationship with individuals if you are really going to be successful. And, I think another lesson that I've learned is, as you become a leader, your job is focused more on, how do I help clear the path? How do I surround myself with the people who are the experts? and ensure that they're on the right path, but give them the freedom to innovate and really drive for results. And again, that's a different mindset than I would have maybe had early in career. And I think it's one that I would encourage all new leaders to really think about, of how are you helping to enable your teams, enable others to be successful, because I think you'll be very pleased with the results.
Tom, I appreciate you joining us today with this session of Coffee with Cleo. Folks, please take some of the information and advice that Dr. Tom Eickhoff has shared with us. But again, much success to you in your role and in your global role in business. And next time we'll have another conversation and more Coffee with Cleo. All the best to you, Tom. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Cleo.